All right, let's talk about those moments. When your emotions just grab the steering wheel and your rational brain gets thrown in the trunk. We're going to break down exactly what's happening inside your head when that happens, and more importantly, we're going to look at two really powerful tools to get your brain back.
Of course you have, right? We all have. It's that flash of just white-hot anger or maybe fear. The words just fly out of your mouth before you can even think, and then that awful, sinking feeling of regret. Well, that whole experience, it actually has a name. It's called an amygdala hijack, and just understanding it is the very first step to getting it under control.
Okay, so to really get what's happening, we're going to use this brilliant, super simple model. The idea is that you are literally flipping your lid. It's a physical way to picture a very, very real thing happening inside your brain. This right here is Dr. Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain. It is such a simple way to feel what's going on. Go ahead and try this with me. Just make a fist, tuck your thumb inside. See? This is your brain when it's all working together. Your wrist is your brainstem, your thumb is your emotional reactive brain, that's the amygdala, and your fingers wrapped over it, that's your thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex. Now, when your brain senses a threat, your amygdala, your thumb, it pops up. And if that threat feels big enough, bam, you flip your lid. Your fingers fly up. Your thinking brain has literally disconnected from your emotional brain. So what's the actual science behind flipping your lid? Well, it's pretty much a war between two very different parts of your brain, and they operate at completely different speeds with totally different goals.
So let's look at the two big players here. On one side, you've got the amygdala. Think of it as your ancient, lightning-fast threat detector. Its only job is to scream danger and hit the fight, flight, or freeze button for your immediate survival. Then, on the other side, you have your prefrontal cortex. This is your wise leader. It's slower, it's thoughtful. It handles all the logic and reason and connection. In a hijack, the fast brain always wins. It just shuts the wise leader down before it even gets a chance to figure out what's really going on.
So, how in the world do we get that wise leader back in the driver's seat? Well, the first tool is this amazing cognitive technique that you can do completely inside your own head. It's all about using language to calm that internal storm. This is called tactical labeling, and there's some really cool science here. A famous UCLA study found that just the simple act of putting a name to a feeling, just identifying it, actually starts to quiet down the amygdala's alarm system. It's kind of like turning on a light in a dark room. All of a sudden, that monster in the corner doesn't seem so big anymore. And look, this isn't just some nice theory. Chris Voss, a former top FBI hostage negotiator, built his entire system on this idea. Brain scans, fMRI scans, literally show that when you label an emotion, the activity in your amygdala goes down. And at the same time, activity in your thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex, goes up. You are physically bringing your wise leader back online.
But here's the key. It's how you label it. So instead of becoming one with the emotion, saying, I am angry, you create a little bit of distance. You become an observer. Try this instead. I notice I am feeling a surge of anger and a fear of being dismissed. Can you feel the difference? That tiny shift in language moves you from being the emotion to observing the emotion. And that's the whole game. Then you can kind of supercharge this whole thing with curiosity. Asking these kinds of questions forces your thinking brain to wake up and get involved. When you ask yourself, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how big of a threat is this really? You break the amygdala's black or white, life or death thinking. You start to introduce some gray area, some nuance, and that creates options.
Okay, but what if you're too far gone? I mean, let's be real, sometimes your lid is so flipped you can't even think straight, let alone label an emotion. That's when you need a different kind of tool, an external one. You have to create physical safety.
Now, this is a really, really critical reframe. Taking a timeout is not about storming off or admitting you lost the fight. It's a proactive, strategic move you make to protect the relationship from the damage your hijacked brain is about to do. It is an act of care for you and for the other person.
And here's a super simple 3-part script to do it safely. First, you state your feeling, but without any blame. I am getting too angry to talk clearly. Simple. Second, you state your action. I am going to step away for 20 minutes to cool down. And third, and this is by far the most important part, you state your promise. I promise I will come back so we can finish this. So why is that promise so absolutely vital? Well, the work of Dr. Gabor Mate on attachment theory explains it perfectly. If you just walk away without that promise, you can trigger what's called an attachment alarm in the other person. It's this deep, primal fear of being abandoned. And guess what that fear does? It hijacks their brain, which pretty much guarantees the fight is going to get worse. That promise to return, it deactivates their alarm. It makes the pause feel safe instead of like a threat. So, when you put these two tools together, you've got the internal one and the external one, you end up with this really powerful system for managing all that emotional intensity. And it's how you move out of a state of combat.
And honestly, that's the real goal here, isn't it? These tools are not about avoiding hard conversations. Not at all. They're about creating the safety, both physically and psychologically, that you absolutely need to have those conversations in a good way. You just can't connect with someone when you're in survival mode. You have to regulate first.
All right, let's wrap this all up. Here are the key takeaways. First, that amygdala hijack is a real thing happening in your brain that disconnects your thinking part. Tool number 1 is your internal strategy. Name it to tame it. Just label your emotions with curiosity. Tool number 2 is your external strategy, the safety timeout. You use that 3-part script to create space without making things worse. And together, these things are what shift you out of survival mode and back to a place where real connection can actually happen. So I'll just leave you with this one final thought. Think about a tough conversation that keeps coming up in your own life. Maybe it's with your partner or a coworker or someone in your family. Now, just imagine, how might that conversation change if you went into it armed with these two simple brain-based tools?